Las Vegas. Fight week tension. The kind of atmosphere where every glance feels like a stare down, and every moment can spiral into headlines. That's exactly what allegedly unfolded when lightweight contender Arman Tsarukyan found himself in a heated roadside altercation with a fan that quickly escalated from verbal trash talk into a chaotic physical confrontation. Eyewitness accounts describe a sudden surge of adrenaline-fueled confrontation outside a training venue, voices raised, security rushing in, phones recording before anyone could blink. But what turned a tense encounter into full-blown combat sports controversy was the shocking claim circulating online: Tsarukyan may have suffered a finger injury during the scuffle. Not in the octagon. Not during a grappling exchange. But on the street, in the middle of fight week chaos. Early whispers suggest a possible fracture, though official confirmation remains unclear, and camp insiders are staying tight-lipped. As clips spread across social media like wildfire, the MMA world did what it always does: split into chaos of speculation and outrage. Some fans calling it heat-of-the-moment intensity, others demanding accountability for what they see as unnecessary escalation outside competition. Then came the heavyweight reaction. UFC CEO Dana White was asked about the situation, and his response reportedly cut through the noise with trademark bluntness. No sugarcoating. No deflection. Just a firm acknowledgement that if fighters are involved in public altercations, everything gets looked at. Behind the scenes, questions are now mounting: was it provoked? Was it self-defense? Or was it a fight week meltdown that crossed a line? One thing is certain: this story is far from over. And in the fight game, sometimes the most dangerous battles don't happen inside the cage, but just outside it, where cameras are rolling and tempers burn even hotter than fight night itself. The atmosphere in Las Vegas during fight week always carries a strange electricity, the kind that feels like it's humming beneath every sidewalk and neon light. Cameras are everywhere, fighters are on edge, and even the smallest interaction can explode into something far bigger than intended. That tension reached a boiling point when lightweight contender Arman Tsarukyan reportedly became involved in a heated altercation with a fan outside a training facility, an incident that quickly escalated from verbal exchange into a chaotic moment that had everyone asking how things spiraled so fast. According to multiple eyewitness accounts circulating in MMA circles, the situation began as a seemingly ordinary exchange. A fan allegedly shouted provocative comments toward Tsarukyan as he exited a session, comments that were described as disrespectful and intentionally inflammatory. Fighters during fight week are already operating under extreme physical fatigue and psychological pressure, and insiders suggest Tsarukyan initially attempted to ignore the provocation. However, the tone of the exchange reportedly shifted when the fan continued pressing closer, repeating remarks that crossed into personal territory. In seconds, what could have been dismissed as background noise turned into a confrontation drawing attention from nearby spectators and gym staff. As the distance between the two sides closed, tension reportedly spiked. Security personnel attempted to position themselves between Tsarukyan and the fan, but the situation was already unfolding too quickly to be neatly contained. Voices were raised, phones were lifted, and within moments the scene transformed into a chaotic cluster of movement and shouting. While full verified footage remains limited, descriptions from those present paint a picture of a brief but intense physical exchange that was broken up almost immediately by intervention from team members and security. What added fuel to the growing storm was the emerging claim that Tsarukyan may have sustained a finger injury during the confrontation. Early speculation suggests a possible fracture or ligament damage, though no official medical report has confirmed the severity of the injury. What is known is that Tsarukyan was seen shortly afterward with visible discomfort in his hand, sparking immediate concern among fans and analysts who understand just how critical hand health is for a fighter operating at the elite level. In a sport where grappling control, striking precision, and defensive framing depend heavily on grip integrity, even a minor finger injury can dramatically affect performance and fight preparation. Inside the MMA community, reactions have been split sharply. Some observers argue that fighters are human beings under extreme stress and that provocations during fight week can push even disciplined athletes to emotional breaking points. Others insist that professionals, especially those competing at the highest level, must maintain composure regardless of outside influence, pointing out that any unnecessary physical escalation can jeopardize careers, contracts, and upcoming fight opportunities. The debate has spread rapidly across social media platforms, with every angle of the incident being analyzed frame by frame, despite the lack of complete verified footage. As the story gained momentum, attention inevitably turned toward UFC leadership. CEO Dana White was asked about the incident during media availability, and his response reflected the organization's familiar stance on fighter conduct outside the octagon. While not offering full detail or immediate disciplinary conclusions, White acknowledged that any situation involving physical altercations outside competition would be reviewed carefully. His tone, described by reporters as firm and unsentimental, reinforced the UFC's long-standing position that fighters represent the organization at all times, not just on fight night. Behind closed doors, industry insiders suggest that the promotion is likely gathering full footage, witness statements, and medical updates before making any determination. The stakes are not insignificant. Depending on what the review uncovers, consequences could range from internal warnings to more serious disciplinary measures, especially if injuries or violations of conduct policy are confirmed. However, at this stage, much remains unverified, and speculation continues to fill the gaps left by official silence. For Tsarukyan, the timing of the incident adds another layer of complexity. As a rising contender in a highly competitive division, every training camp matters, every injury matters, and every distraction carries potential consequences for future title aspirations. Whether this incident becomes a minor footnote in a long career or a defining controversy will depend heavily on what emerges in the coming days as more details come to light. For now, the fight world remains locked in anticipation, watching closely as one confrontation outside the cage threatens to echo far beyond the streets of Las Vegas. As the initial shock of the altercation began to settle, the narrative surrounding Arman Tsarukyan became even more layered, with conflicting details emerging from different angles of the fight week environment. Within hours, what had started as a brief confrontation outside a training facility had evolved into a multi-layered controversy involving questions of fighter conduct, fan behavior, injury legitimacy, and organizational response. In the center of it all stood Arman Tsarukyan, now facing not only speculation about what happened in the moment, but also concern about what it could mean for his immediate future inside the lightweight division. Inside MMA circles, the focus quickly shifted to the reported finger injury. In combat sports, hand integrity is everything, and even minor damage can disrupt striking rhythm, grappling control, and defensive framing. Early observations suggested Tsarukyan may have aggravated a finger during the altercation, though the exact mechanism remains unclear. Some accounts suggest it happened during an attempt to break contact, while others speculate it may have occurred when tensions escalated into physical movement and scrambling between security and those involved. Regardless of the cause, the visible discomfort seen afterwards sparked immediate concern from coaches and analysts who understand how fragile fight preparations can be at this stage of camp. What made the situation more complicated was the lack of official medical confirmation. Without scans or documented assessments released publicly, the MMA community was left to piece together fragments of eyewitness reports and short video clips circulating online. This vacuum of verified information allowed speculation to spread rapidly, with some fans exaggerating the severity of the injury while others dismissed it entirely as minor or even incidental. The truth, as often happens in fast-moving fight week controversies, likely sits somewhere between early assumptions and full confirmation yet to come. Meanwhile, the UFC leadership found itself once again in the position of managing unexpected external drama involving one of its athletes. CEO Dana White addressed the situation in a measured but firm tone, emphasizing that any incident involving physical confrontation outside sanctioned competition would be evaluated. While he avoided premature judgment, his comments reflected a consistent organizational stance. Fighters are expected to maintain professionalism regardless of provocation, especially during high-visibility fight weeks when emotions and attention are already heightened. Behind the scenes, it is understood that the promotion typically initiates a review process in situations like this, gathering footage from security cameras, statements from witnesses, and any relevant medical evaluations. Although the UFC does not always make such processes public in real time, internal assessments often determine whether disciplinary action is necessary or whether the matter is resolved without further consequences. In Tsarukyan's case, the uncertainty surrounding the details means no immediate decisions have been announced, but the incident is unlikely to be ignored given the visibility it has already achieved. The fan involvement in the altercation has also become a focal point of discussion. Fight week environments are known for their intensity, but there is an unspoken boundary between verbal provocation and physical escalation. Some observers argue that fighters are frequently subjected to verbal abuse and must develop thicker psychological resilience to navigate it. Others counter that there are limits to what athletes should be expected to absorb, particularly when interactions cross into persistent harassment or physical encroachment. This divide has fueled ongoing debate across social platforms, where opinions are sharply split between those defending Tsarukyan's reaction and those criticizing it as avoidable escalation. As the conversation expanded, attention also turned toward the broader implications for Tsarukyan's career trajectory. Positioned as a rising contender in one of the most competitive divisions in the sport, he is at a stage where momentum matters as much as performance. Any injury, even minor, can disrupt training cycles, alter sparring intensity, or force strategic adjustments in preparation. Coaches are often forced to make difficult decisions in such scenarios, balancing the need for recovery with the pressure of maintaining fight readiness. In elite MMA, timing is often as critical as skill, and disruptions during camp can have ripple effects that extend far beyond a single incident. Public perception is another factor that cannot be ignored. In the modern combat sports landscape, fighters are not only judged by their performances inside the cage but also by their behavior outside it. Social media amplification means that any altercation can quickly shape narratives that persist far longer than the event itself. For Tsarukyan, this means the incident will likely follow him into future interviews, fight promotions, and media appearances, regardless of how minor or major the actual injury ultimately proves to be. As the story continues to develop, one thing remains clear: the intersection of fan interaction, fighter pressure, and organizational scrutiny has created a situation that extends beyond a single moment outside a gym. It has become a case study in how quickly tension can escalate during fight week, and how rapidly those moments can evolve into headlines that demand explanation. For now, the MMA world waits for clarity, official updates, and perhaps most importantly, confirmation of whether this incident will fade quietly, or become a defining chapter in Tsarukyan's rising career. As the dust continues to settle around the altercation involving Arman Tsarukyan, the conversation inside the MMA world has begun shifting from immediate shock to deeper analysis of what this incident actually represents in the broader context of fight culture. What initially appeared to be a sudden flashpoint outside a training facility has now evolved into a case study in pressure, perception, and the razor-thin line between professional composure and emotional reaction. At the center of that scrutiny remains Arman Tsarukyan, whose reputation as a disciplined, technically sharp lightweight contender is now being viewed through an entirely different lens. One of the most discussed elements of the situation is still the reported finger injury. While early speculation suggested a possible fracture, more cautious voices within the sport argue that the lack of official medical confirmation makes any conclusion premature. In elite mixed martial arts, even small hand injuries can create outsized concern because of their direct impact on striking mechanics and grappling control. Fighters rely on their fingers for grip strength during clinches, submissions, and defensive frames against takedowns. If Tsarukyan has indeed suffered any damage, even minor, the implications for his training camp could be significant, forcing adjustments in sparring intensity or even temporarily shifting focus away from certain aspects of his preparation. At the same time, the uncertainty surrounding the injury has fueled a parallel narrative: misinformation and rapid speculation in the digital age of combat sports. Within minutes of the incident gaining traction online, various interpretations began circulating, some exaggerating the severity of the injury while others downplayed the entire confrontation as insignificant. This pattern is not unusual in modern MMA discourse, where fragmented clips and second-hand accounts often shape public perception before official statements are released. The result is a layered and sometimes distorted understanding of events that continues to evolve as more details emerge. The organizational response has also remained a central point of attention. UFC CEO Dana White has maintained a measured but firm stance, reinforcing the expectation that fighters must uphold professional conduct at all times, particularly during high-visibility fight weeks. While no immediate disciplinary action has been confirmed, the emphasis on review and evaluation signals that the incident is being taken seriously behind the scenes. In situations like this, the promotion typically examines multiple sources of information, including security footage, eyewitness accounts, and medical reports, before determining whether any further action is necessary. Beyond the organizational layer, the incident has reignited long-standing debate about the boundaries between athletes and fans in combat sports. Fight week environments are uniquely charged spaces where anticipation runs high and emotions are already heightened. Fighters are often approached, filmed, and verbally engaged in ways that blur the line between admiration and provocation. Some analysts argue that athletes in these environments must develop stronger emotional filtering systems, capable of absorbing verbal pressure without reacting physically. Others counter that repeated provocation, especially when it becomes personal or invasive, creates scenarios where escalation becomes difficult to avoid. This tension between expectation and reality is particularly relevant for rising contenders like Tsarukyan, who exist in a space where visibility is increasing rapidly. As fighters climb the ranks, their public exposure expands dramatically, bringing both support and scrutiny in equal measure. Every interaction, whether positive or negative, becomes part of a larger narrative that can influence matchmaking, sponsorship perception, and fan engagement. In this environment, even a brief confrontation can take on disproportionate significance, shaping discussions far beyond its actual duration. Coaching teams and training partners have also been drawn into the conversation, particularly regarding how such incidents might impact preparation. Fight camps are carefully structured systems designed to peak physical and mental performance at a specific moment. Any disruption, whether injury-related or psychological, can alter that balance. Coaches must now assess not only Tsarukyan's physical condition but also his mental focus in the aftermath of the event. Maintaining composure after public controversy is often as important as recovering from physical strain, especially in a sport where margins of victory are extremely narrow. As for the fan involved in the altercation, limited verified information continues to leave gaps in the public understanding of what actually triggered the escalation. Without clear footage or official statements detailing the full sequence of events, interpretations remain divided. Some argue the responsibility lies primarily with the individual who initiated the verbal provocation, while others insist that professional athletes must maintain restraint regardless of external behavior. This unresolved ambiguity ensures that debate around accountability will persist long after the immediate news cycle fades. Looking forward, the key question is not only how this incident will affect Tsarukyan's immediate fight preparations, but whether it will influence his long-term trajectory within the division. At this stage of his career, momentum is critical, and any disruption, physical, reputational, or psychological, has the potential to shift the competitive landscape. Yet history in combat sports has also shown that athletes often emerge from controversy with renewed focus, using moments of chaos as fuel for performance rather than deterrence. For now, the situation remains fluid, with more clarity expected as medical evaluations are confirmed and official statements are released. Until then, the MMA world continues to watch closely, aware that in this sport, even a single moment outside the cage can echo far longer than expected once it enters the spotlight. As the story surrounding Arman Tsarukyan continues to develop, the final layer of this unfolding situation is shifting from speculation and reaction into reflection and consequence. In combat sports, moments like these rarely remain isolated incidents. Instead, they evolve into reference points that shape how fighters are perceived, managed, and even matched moving forward. For Arman Tsarukyan, the aftermath of the reported altercation is now less about what happened in the heat of the moment and more about what it means for his standing as a top-tier lightweight contender in one of the most competitive divisions in mixed martial arts. One of the most important unresolved elements remains the condition of his hand. The alleged finger injury, still not fully confirmed by official medical documentation, continues to circulate as a key point of concern. Even in cases where injuries are minor, the psychological effect on a fighter can be substantial. Hand awareness becomes heightened, striking confidence can subtly shift, and training partners often adjust their intensity to avoid aggravating the issue. In elite competition, these small adjustments can accumulate, influencing timing, reaction speed, and overall fluidity inside the cage. If Tsarukyan is dealing with even a moderate strain or sprain, the ripple effect on his preparation timeline could be more significant than initially assumed. At the same time, the broader MMA community has begun to move beyond the immediate shock of the altercation and into a more structured debate about accountability and environment. Fight week is widely recognized as one of the most stressful periods in a fighter's calendar. Weight cuts are nearing completion, media obligations are at their peak, and mental focus is constantly tested by external noise. In that context, interactions between fighters and fans can become unpredictable, especially when boundaries are crossed. Some analysts argue that athletes at this level must maintain near-total emotional control, regardless of provocation, while others highlight that repeated verbal harassment and physical proximity from overzealous individuals can create situations where escalation becomes difficult to avoid. The UFC's internal handling of the situation has also remained a focal point. CEO Dana White has consistently maintained a stance that emphasizes discipline and professionalism, particularly when incidents occur outside the sanctioned competitive environment. While no formal punishment has been announced, the emphasis on review suggests that the organization is treating the matter with seriousness, even if the final outcome remains undecided. In similar cases in the past, the UFC has taken a measured approach, weighing intent, severity, and context before making determinations that could affect fighter careers or event scheduling. Beyond organizational response, there is also the question of public narrative and how quickly perception can solidify in the absence of complete information. Modern combat sports exist in a media ecosystem where short clips, partial angles, and second-hand reports often shape the initial understanding of an event long before official clarity is provided. Once a narrative gains traction, it becomes increasingly difficult to reverse, even if later details provide a more nuanced explanation. In Tsarukyan's case, this means that both supporters and critics are working from incomplete information, leading to sharply divided interpretations of responsibility and intent. Another important dimension is the long-term psychological impact of such incidents on athletes operating at the elite level. Even when physical injuries are minor or temporary, the emotional residue of a public confrontation can linger. Fighters often rely on structured routines to maintain focus, and disruptions, especially those involving controversy or external conflict, can subtly alter their mental rhythm. For a contender like Tsarukyan, who is still ascending toward potential title contention, maintaining mental clarity is as critical as physical readiness. Any distraction, however brief, can influence preparation quality in ways that are not immediately visible to the public. Training camps themselves may also adapt in response to the incident. Coaches and teams often reassess external exposure, media interactions, and security protocols following high-profile altercations. While fighters cannot be completely insulated from public engagement, adjustments can be made to reduce unnecessary friction during sensitive phases of preparation. This may include limiting unstructured public interactions or increasing controlled environments around training facilities, especially when anticipation around a fighter's next bout is high. Meanwhile, fan behavior continues to be scrutinized as part of the broader discussion. The relationship between fighters and audiences in combat sports is uniquely intense, built on proximity, emotion, and direct engagement. Unlike many other sports, athletes often walk through crowds, conduct open workouts, and interact directly with supporters in highly charged environments. This closeness creates moments of genuine connection, but also increases the potential for confrontation when boundaries are not respected. The Tsarukyan incident has reignited discussion about where those boundaries should be drawn and how they should be enforced. As more time passes, the immediate intensity of the incident will likely fade, but its implications may continue to echo within Tsarukyan's career trajectory. Whether it becomes a minor footnote or a defining moment will depend largely on how quickly clarity emerges regarding the injury, how the UFC ultimately chooses to respond, and how Tsarukyan himself moves forward in training and competition. In the high-stakes world of elite MMA, narratives are constantly rewritten, and momentum can shift rapidly based on both performance and perception. For now, the situation remains in a holding pattern, suspended between uncertainty and resolution. What is clear, however, is that the intersection of pressure, public visibility, and emotional intensity has once again produced a moment that extends far beyond a single altercation. And in that space, where sport meets scrutiny, every detail matters more than it first appears. If this situation around Arman Tsarukyan continues to develop, the next few updates will be crucial in separating speculation from confirmed fact. Right now, the MMA world is waiting on clarity, especially regarding the reported finger injury and whether it will affect his training timeline or upcoming fight plans. All eyes will also remain on UFC leadership and how Dana White and the promotion choose to address the incident after reviewing footage, witness accounts, and medical information. In high-level MMA, moments like this don't just fade away, they often influence matchmaking, media narratives, and fighter momentum going forward. For fans, the key is to stay updated through verified sources as more details emerge. Fight week stories can shift quickly once official statements drop, and early speculation is often replaced by a very different reality. Stick around for the next update, because this story is still unfolding, and the real impact has not been fully revealed yet.